Okay, so we looked at the yin aspect of drawing the center out, grabbing the leading edge of the force, extending the intent, pulling the energy out of center so that the person's mind intent, the person's feeling of energy and power, and their structure and core get separated. As that separation happens, they become vulnerable. So Tansa is one of the primary movements for this, but you can use Gan or Bong or whatever hand shape you want, depending where that force is being placed and what's the optimal way to grab the force and lead the balance out. While you're leading the balance out, the other hand is Yang. So you reticulate the energy. Now Wing Chun will pull the energy through the upper circle and back while talking through the body while it's being done. Now you can make it purely an upper circle rotation. You can connect it to the legs and turn the waist and legs all together. The more parts of the body which engage in this yin-yang action, the slower it is. So if it's just the upper circle, it's an electric crack. As soon as you start torquing the waist and torquing the body, the energy need a little bit more time to come back up and spin up the center to feed the yang hand. Now, my favorite method is to clamp my elbow and my knee together as I produce the yang force. This clamping from here to here, I also clamp from my hip to my rib and squeeze my core to create this explosion of mass. And because this explosion wave of mass is moving through the fascia, you also get a wave of life force being conducted. So Jin or life force, power, internal power, moves through the fascia. If you move a wave of mass through the fascia, you gather internal energy. If you're very, very tuned to how to stretch the fascia to produce internal energy, you get a high amplification of internal energy. So we want to use two forces. Gravity, we drop in our body weight into the fascia, and we want to take our partner's force and feed that through. So we drop, Tansao pulls the energy out, and the strike simultaneously. So between those two forces of gravity and the drop within our own structure into the fascia, and leading out our partner's balance and force into the punch, these two harmonize together to produce the right type of kinetic load and internal wave of force. So the yang hand has a combination of taking energy from the yin hand, the rotational force, and then gravity and mass moving through the fascia to produce the type of strike that you want to use. Now, whether it's an arrow punch, a palm, a knife hand strike, a cut to the throat, whatever energy you're bringing back into the strike, the personality and the mechanics will change a little bit to fit that particular situation. So it's always shifting, changing, and adapting in accordance to the need of the person and the situation. So this change in personality will require a change in body mechanics and a change in timing in the mind. Do you want a knockout technique? Do you want to inflict pain? Do you want to have a short, sharp strike to the throat? All these require different timing, different personality, different structure and mechanics within the yang hand. So you can adjust those energies through the rotational force, through the connection of the body weight, and through that wave of energy according to whatever function that you want it to have. All right, so when you're developing your intrinsic energies, all three dantians need to be taken into consideration. What is the body mechanics? What is the feeling or personality of that energy? Is it harmful? Is it sharp? Is it smooth? Is it long? Is it cutting? Does it break bones? What's the personality of it? Is the energy really short and sharp, or is it long and deep? You need to look at the personality of the energy. And then how does the yi, the mind force, control it? How does the mind regulate the space? How does the mind regulate the timing? And how does the mind regulate the feeling and the body? Because the mind is the king. Now, the mind has a yin and yang aspect to it. It has the intender, the intentional part that makes it happen, and it has the observer that watches and makes sure you're doing the correct thing. The observer regulates timing. It regulates doing what is the optimal thing in each situation. The intender follows the law of the observer. So the observing mind is the king. The intending part of the mind, it's subject to that king. It's like a general listening to the king. So we go down the hierarchy of command. We have the observing mind, we have the intending mind, then we have the energy, and then we have the motion. And it comes down the hierarchy. So we need to recognize this hierarchy very, very early, so we build this habit of observing the intender doing things, and how the intender mobilizes the feeling of the energy into the mechanics of the body. That we initiate the feeling into a micro movement inside the fascia to produce a macro movement inside the technique. Micro produces macro. The reason why we move from micro to macro is that the fascia is activated through stretches around the joints. So micro stretch around the joint generates the initial movement, and then we radiate through the fascia through the bigger motion. Small motion is joint energy opening, and then big motion extends out of that joint energy to ensure the muscles have not switched on, but the fascia is more active. Okay, so I hope that helps with the yang hand, and we'll work more on this yin and yang relationship. And we'll put this principle into each of the movements so that you can develop each movement throughout the forms correctly. Okay, thank you for your time, and see you on the next video.